So, Anna, we have so many questions. You saw that I put in my stories, people could submit, and we got so many. And then on top of the ones that I already sent you. So we're gonna have to
All
just jump
good.
right in.
All good. I'm ready. Let's go.
Um, so for those of you who don't know, tonight we are focusing specifically on King of Wrath, but Anna has written the Twisted series, which is how I was introduced to you, and then I am blanking on the other series that you've written.
The
But
If Love series. Yeah.
okay, yes. But tonight we are talking about King of Wrath, which comes out on Thursday,
Yes.
and so soon. Um, Before we jump into specifics about that, could you tell us a little bit about your journey as a writer and how you got where you are now?
Yeah. It's been pretty wild. So I have been writing for a while. I used to just do it for fun growing up. It was kind of like my creative outlet, my therapeutic outlet. I didn't really show my writing to anyone. I just did it for myself. And then I wrote a story in like high school that I posted like online. I not the best writing of my life because I wrote it when I was like 16 or 17. But I published it a couple of years later. It was actually young adult. It's since been unpublished just because like the quality I think of the writing was just not necessarily like where I wanted to be right now.
Sure.
But I stopped writing for a while because life happens. I graduated from college. I had like a job and all of this stuff. And then 2020 happened and the pandemic came and I had a lot more free time on my hands.
Yeah.
So I got back into reading for fun and I got back into writing. And since then, the If Love series came first, and then I published the Twisted series last year, starting with Twisted Love in April, and it it took off.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, in a very unexpected way. And so now I am a full-time author. So,
That's so cool. It's
yeah,
crazy. I mean, obviously, wish it didn't happen. The pandemic is horrible, but so many stories come out of that of people finding new passions or like a re-energized passion.
yeah,
I think that's so exciting. Um,
yeah.
that was, well, one of the questions that we had from one of the readers submitted questions was, how has it been experiencing like specifically the Twisted series just take off and kind of blow up and you know get very popular on social media? What's that been like?
It's been pretty wild, especially when I look back on it and I'm like, oh wow, I only published Twisted Love like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And it seems like so much has happened since then. Like I am so grateful to all of my readers and for everyone. Like literally right now, like being able to write full time has always been kind of a dream in the back of my head that I never thought would happen because it's always one of those things where people are like, oh, like in order to make it as an author, you have to it's like one in a million, right? Like you have to be at like a
Yeah.
Nora Roberts or like a Stephen King kind of level. And um, but yeah, no, it has been a lot of fun and like really amazing to be able to connect with readers over like these characters and just have it touch people in a way that is able to hopefully provide some joy and comfort to them. Also a bit overwhelming, I think,
Yeah.
sometimes, just with, like a lot of, there's just like a lot more things that I have to be aware of and to do like now that there's like so much going on in my life, but it's a good problem to have, so I'm grateful for it.
Well, we are excited that you did write them. So for the people that don't know, which I think that most of the people watching, but maybe not, can you give us a summary, spoiler free-ish if you can,
Yeah.
of King of Wrath and maybe the series that it's a part of?
Yeah, so The Kings of Sin is a series of billionaire romances that's themed around the seven deadly sins. So the first one is King of Wrath, which is Dante and Vivian's story, and you have the physical copy earlier than I do. I don't even
I
have
don't
it
know.
right
Like
now.
it literally showed up like 10 minutes before I got on and I was like, "Okay, I'll take it."
Yeah, I think sometimes they send out pre-orders like early so they hit the day of. But yes, it is Dante and Vivian's story. So basically, Dante is blackmailed into an engagement with Vivian. And Vivian thinks it's just a standard arranged marriage, so she doesn't know about the blackmail. But they do not have the best first impression of each other, to say the least. But they are both forced to be in this engagement for various reasons. Her, because she doesn't want to let down and disappoint her family. Him, because he's forced to because of the blackmail. So they move in together into Dante's house, and along the way, they kind of get to know each other better and gradually fall in love. And it's a story about their romance, but it's also a story about family and the way that dynamics plays into their personal arcs and their relationship growth as well. So I think that's as much as I can say without spoiling things.
Well, no, you kind of that was a question that I have, but we'll just jump to it since you brought it up, which is a lot of your books do talk about like family dynamics, but this one specifically focuses the way that you've already mentioned, and I don't think you mentioned it, but even the blackmail is based around family. So it's basically like the love of family that kind of gets them into that
Yeah.
situation. So what was it that made you want that to be such a key element of this story?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not something that I necessarily went into this book being like, okay, I have to explore this topic of family, but it's something that organically grew when I was trying to figure out who the characters are, right? So when I first write a book, I always figure out the characters first before anything else, before like the plot or any scenes or anything like
Mm.
that, because I think in a romance, the characters are the most important part of the story.
Yeah.
And so, just in terms of me trying to figure out their personalities, their backgrounds, how it shaped them into the person that they are, it just ends up being that both of them happen to have this relationship, kind of dysfunctional, but also like loving, sometimes
Hmm.
um, to a detrimental degree, I think,
Yeah.
for both of them as part of their kind of personal journey. So it kind of happened organically.
Yeah, okay. Well, that makes me wonder more about your writing process, which we did have a lot of questions about that as well, which is, um, obviously we've talked a little bit about how you wrote the Twisted series so quickly. It's only been a year and a half, and here we are. And I think the next one's what, April is the
Yeah, King of
proposed
Pride.
date.
You guys found
So
it fast. I literally put that pre-order up, and then like 4 hours later, someone posted in my Facebook group, and they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like,
yeah,
"Oh my god, I didn't
no,
even say."
I saw it in the Facebook group, and I was like, here we go. This one's not even like
Yeah, I'm
published
like,
yet.
the first book isn't even out yet, guys.
Yeah. Um, so there are a lot of questions about the continuation of the series, but I don't want to like forget about this one because it's not even fully
Yeah.
out yet. But um, there are some questions about writing process in terms of, how far in advance do you plan things out? We saw Dante and Vivian in the Twisted series. So what's that process like for you?
It's kind of chaotic. It's both chaotic and structured. So Dante actually popped up. He just popped up in Twisted Hate. I didn't plan for him to be a character, but I was writing that scene and he just showed up, and I was like, okay, well, I guess this guy wants a book of his own, so here he is. Um, but for how long it takes, generally a couple of months. Honestly, to be fully honest, my writing process will take as long as my deadline tells me it needs to take. Like if
Uh,
it's 6 months, it will be up to that 6 months. If it's 3 months, I'll make it work in 3 months. But yeah, usually, when I have a new book in mind, right, I have a general idea of the themes and the tropes that I want to use, a general idea of like the concept, right? And then I
sure.
go into the characters. So I kind of figure out the characters more. I brainstorm kind of their backstories, like what is their personal arc individually and as a couple in the book. And then I go in on the plot and start being a little bit more specific about how I want the plot to play out, like the major beats, the big moments, and then I go into scenes. So I will write the first draft. I skeleton draft. So basically, I write a scene, and then if I hit a scene that I don't know what I want to write, I just put a placeholder, and then I skip it, and then until I get all the way to the end, and then I go back and I fill in all the scenes that I skipped. And
Oh,
I
wow.
keep doing this until I have a full draft, which usually takes me about like 3 to 4 passes.
Okay.
And then after that, I send it to my alpha readers and my editor. And then after that, I send it to my beta readers. And then after that is like my copy and like my proofreaders. So it goes through a lot of different iterations.
Yeah, that's a lot. Well,
Yeah.
one of the questions we had was how was it different writing this book versus the Twisted series? And the pressure, was there more pressure by deadlines and everything like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it's strange because I mean definitely a tighter deadline because Twisted Hate and Twisted Lies, both of them I had about 5 to 6 months between the last release and their book releases to do it. This one I had like 3.5 months.
Yeah,
It was tight and my summer was like pretty busy. So but I got it done.
you
It's
did
fine.
it. You did it.
I
Here
always
it is.
say whenever I'm freaking out and I go to my editor, she's like, it's fine. And I'm like, we will get it done. It always gets done.
Right.
But yeah, so definitely some deadline pressure. And it was a little odd because I have been in the Twisted world for, I mean, it was 1.5 years, but still, this is the world that I shared the most with my readers and the world that I've been so immersed in. So it felt a little bit weird to be writing about characters that no one really knew about yet.
Yeah.
So it kind of took me a while to like shift that headspace, but once I got into it, then, you know, things got going.
Well, here it is. You did it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so
Um,
relieved.
well, how much did the book change, from your initial idea to where it is now?
It changed a lot.
Yeah.
It changed a lot. Fun fact, the entire, I would say, last 25% of the book, from the conflict all the way to the epilogue, I changed that about 10 days before I sent out the arcs. So I rewrote
Okay.
that entire last part of the book.
Did you sleep at all? Are you okay?
No, I did not sleep. Thank you. But it's fine. I go to my coffee shop and I just get like a bunch of espresso shots in the morning and then I walk in and then they got so used to seeing me and they're like, oh, the usual. And then the night before I think I went through the night. So I literally went to bed at like 7 a.m. to
Ooh.
finish like proofing the book. But it's fine. I got it done.
Well, that makes me, I always wonder. So, do you go back and reread your books once they're published, or do you just decide, I can't, there's no way I can do it?
I absolutely do not go back.
No.
I don't reread any of my books.
No, I can
Like I'll
imagine
reread
it would be,
scenes, but I don't reread like
yeah.
the whole book. Yeah.
I'm sure that it would, I imagine it would be hard not to critique yourself the whole way through.
Yeah.
So, probably
Especially if it's an
safer.
older book. Yeah.
Right.
So
Well, okay, one of the questions we had is what is your favorite thing about Dante and Vivian as individuals and then as a couple?
yeah. I think one of the things I love about Vivian is she's so elegant and classy in her way, but she also has a little bit of a sass to her, like in
Hmm.
a very she'll be very sassy in a very like elegant way, which I love about her.
Yes.
She doesn't take Dante's, can I curse on here? She doesn't take Dante's
Yeah.
shit. But yeah, she gives it back to him, as good as she gets. And then Dante, he is on the surface, he seems like, the usual like grumpy, ruthless kind of billionaire, but I think he really does have a heart of gold underneath it, and he's
Hmm.
very loyal to the people that he loves, which is not many, but the small circle that he has, he's very loyal to them. And I think together as a couple, I love that they're able to kind of complement each other in a way and to bring out a side in the other that they're not able to be around other people. Like she's able to pull out his more like playful, like loving side, and he's able to pull out the side of her that feels like she doesn't have to be all perfect and on all of the time. And
Right.
they're able to grow into like better versions of themselves together, I think. So,
No, I agree with you. When you were talking about Vivian, I love that she is like I would describe her as a kind person. She's a kind character, yet she has that undertone of I'm just not going to take it from anybody. And I love
yeah.
that she can like cut so quickly, but you wouldn't know unless you like piss her off, which is so great.
Yeah, I know.
Um, one of the dynamics that I found really interesting was how, both of them are in this, upper echelon of New York society, but the way they got there is totally different. So Dante was born into it, you know, the creme de la creme, and her family like clawed their way, made their way just to get even on like the lowest rungs. So did you have to do any research to kind of write those two dynamics, or how did you go about telling those two different sides?
Yeah, it's not okay. So I grew up in like the Gossip Girl era, right?
Yes.
So I mean, I think I read those. I actually read the books before I saw the show, and I was probably way too young to be reading those books. I was like 12. I was like 12 or like 11. But I was very fascinated growing up by that kind of world. So it's always been something that I had like not experience, but I did the research when I was like back in
Yeah,
my high
that
school days,
counts.
right? So
That
it kind of
counts.
stuck with me, you know what I mean? So it's not something that I had to do specifically for this book. It's just something that I kind of all of the stuff, the knowledge that I accumulated over the years, just from
Right.
being so fascinated by that type of dynamic, I think.
Have you seen the new Gossip Girl?
I have not. I have not. I
Mm.
need to. Is it? You don't sound very enthusiastic
I
about
think
it.
it's hard when you love the original to like, I mean,
Yeah.
I can appreciate it, but it's totally different. So, but
Yeah.
yes,
I generally don't like reboots. Like I generally like the classic more than the new.
yeah, me too.
But you know, we'll see.
I I think I wrote in my review one of the things about it was like Gossip Girl vibes for sure, and
Yeah.
I loved that so much.
Yes. I love God.
Okay,
Yeah.
one of the things I really love when I'm reading, and you do it so well, is multiple points of view.
Hmm.
So, how do you do it? How do you get yourself in the different headspaces? And in this book, was there one that you were more excited to write than the other or had more fun with?
Yeah. I don't know. It's something that kind of like comes to me. Well, here's an interesting thing that I realized when I was writing the Twisted series, when I was writing the male POV, especially for characters like Alex and Christian, who are a little bit more like reserved and like commanding, is that when I did their dialogue, I had to be much more direct. Like I had to be very conscious of taking out all of the question marks
Mm-hmm.
and all of the like maybe you can or like I think like I had to take all of those out and then it made me realize just like in real life I'm like wow like as a as a woman I do that a lot that like men don't do, you know what I mean? Like I put a lot
Yep.
of qualifications on the way that I speak, which was something very interesting that I realized when I was writing from their perspective. But for this book in particular, I really like Dante's POV just because he was so, you know, there's something just really fun about writing about a guy who's falling in love that doesn't actually know they're falling in love, and they're like,
Mm.
what are these like emotions that I'm feeling inside? You know what I
Yep.
mean? And it's just so funny to me, and I really enjoy. Like he's just so. Sometimes he's so like clueless about his emotions, but it was
I
fun.
don't remember the exact line. I don't have it memorized, but there is a scene where he said, you know, she asks him like something like, "Well, why do you care?" And he's like, "I don't know, but I do." And I was just like, "Yes, I am here for this." It's so funny.
Yeah, he's like this poor man who has never felt this before. It's just like I don't understand what's happening.
Right. Well, that leads to the jealousy scenes. Like he has no
Yes.
idea why he's jealous, but there are some really good jealousy scenes. There, I love them. And are those your favorite to write? Like, do you have a
Yeah,
favorite type of scene?
I love jealousy scenes. Those are some of my favorite to write. They're just so like
Yes.
fun, and I love reading them too. So it's just like one of those things I love to read and write.
I get really stressed out with like love triangles, but when there's a good, like, not love triangle, but jealousy element, it's just
Yeah.
so good. It's so good.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so one of the questions we had from a reader is what are some new tropes that you haven't or that we haven't seen you write that we can expect to see in this series?
Well, I don't want to give too much away first, but definitely, you know, because I know once people read King of Wrath, there will be, if I say a trope, one particular trope, they will know who
Okay.
they will know who it is. But yeah, I think, you know, some tropes that I'm interested in exploring, I would love to do a Grumpy Sunshine where like the female is the grumpy one. Because I read
Hmm.
a lot of the other way, right? Like the male grump and then the female sunshine. So I would
Yeah.
love to try the other way around. And then, I mean, in full honesty, I haven't fully plotted out all 7 books. Like I have a general idea of how the next 3 books after Wrath are going to go. And then I still have to figure out like the rest. But yeah, I'm open to a lot of different tropes. So we'll see.
We're excited about them. One of the questions about the series as a whole is, should we expect the publishing timeline to be as quick as it has been, or will it draw out now that you've got more pressure on you?
Yeah, it really depends, you know. So the timeline might extend a little bit because I am trying to have, so you know, the series has a British publisher who is also the publisher for my Twisted series in the Commonwealth. So I am trying for the rest of the books in the series, I am trying to have the paperbacks released simultaneously in the
Okay.
US and the Commonwealth because right now the Commonwealth paperback release is about a month after the
Hmm.
rest of the world, which means that I need to get my files, like it'll extend the timeline a bit because the publisher will need time to, um, do things on their end. It's not like indie publishing where you can just press like hit, like
Right.
submit and then they do it. So that extends the timeline out a little bit. I am aiming for like 2 to 3 books a year publishing. Next year probably will be 2 books just because I have a lot of travel going on next year and then
Yeah.
we'll see. Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest fear that I saw was people worrying that it would only be 1 book a year. So it doesn't sound like we're there yet.
No, I don't think we're at the point where I'm at 1 book a year yet.
Um, okay, so this is a topic I had a lot of people asking about,
Okay.
and it is sex and sexuality in your books. Lots of compliments about how well you write them.
Thank
We
you.
had I had a lot of people talk about how they just appreciate that they don't cringe while they read them. So I don't know what kind of experiences they've had reading, but that is a comment that I got. So several questions we can go into, but where do you get the inspiration? You don't have to go into your personal life if you don't want to. um,
It turns into a different kind of show very quickly. Yeah.
then there's does it get awkward? Why is this an important element for you to include in your romances? So if you want to just take it
Yeah.
away, we can talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, well, so okay, in all honesty, in the beginning when I was writing, it was hard for me to pull those words out of me because I was not used to writing to that level of steam because the
Hmm.
first book I ever wrote, the one that I wrote in high school, that was young adult. And
Right.
then my first series was steamy, but like not to the point of twisted. So I had to do some like mind shifts in terms of like the type of language that I used in my in my spicy scenes. But once I got over that bump, then it just became a lot more natural to me. But I mean, I think sex is an important part of a relationship, right? Like it happens whether or not people talk about it. But I just think that it's important for me when I do a romance that I show all the aspects of the relationship. And there is a lot of emotional bonding and a lot of relationship building that can happen through spicy scenes. I mean, some of them,
Mm.
yes, I write just because like it's hot and like I'll
Yeah,
write the scene. But then
we
there's other
appreciate it.
scenes and then there's other scenes that are actual like a moment for them to either come together, literally and figuratively, um, or to build and take their relationship to their next level. That's a very important part of their relationship development. And so I like to show all of those things. And I just don't think sexuality is like, I think it's a very natural part of life. I don't think it's something that we should be ashamed of or something that we should be ashamed of talking about. Like, I think there's a certain stigma about it, especially I feel like in the US it tends to be a little bit less open about it than in some other
Yeah.
countries. But, I just think it's a normal part of life and in love. Inspiration, I don't know. I just anything. Like I will see like sometimes I read like erotica or I will just randomly just see something and I'm like, oh, like my imagination just goes into weird places. But I'll be like, oh, this could make like a good scene for a book. And I'll write it down. and then go
Do
from
you
there.
have to like cut any out while you're editing, or do you typically write them and they stay in the way they are?
They typically stay in the way. I usually have to lengthen them a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't usually cut a lot out. Because I don't write like a ton. Like I write steamy romance, but I don't write erotic romance, right? So like my
Right.
books are not like every page is sex. So
Yeah.
I usually have about like probably like four, I would say like 3 to 5 sex scenes in a book. Some of them more detailed than others. But yeah, I don't usually take them out. I keep them as is.
Well, someone talked about how you usually have a scene, at least one scene in each book where it's, the female kind of takes control of the situation and is kind of like empowered in her sexuality in that moment. Is that something that you intend to do, or it just is naturally the way that you write it?
It depends. I think sometimes it is something that I want to show, you know what I mean? Like especially like I don't want to give anything away, but I think especially in certain dynamics where the guy has always had control,
Right.
I think it's important that she feel because it's like the sex is not just sex. Like I also wanted to play into their character arc and how they feel with each other. So like even if for instance they are physically submissive like in the situation, I still want them to emotionally feel empowered because
Yeah.
that is part of it, like it's not just
Right.
about the physical act, it's about the trust that they have each other and like their emotions at the time of that scene. So
Well, keep doing it. Um, I know, like, I've talked to some authors who say when they write their books, they just tell like their friends and their moms, like, do not read my books. I can't talk to you about this.
yeah,
Do you do any of your
they're not
friends or
allowed.
family?
Only my mom knows my pen name. And
Okay.
she's not allowed to read my books. If you read the dedication of Just a Love, she is not allowed to read my books, which is fine because she doesn't really read English books anyway. Like she buys them and they just like sit there. So she's like, these are the books that my daughter wrote. And yeah, and none of my friends, like some of them know that I write books, but they don't know like, you know, what I write. And they
Sure.
don't really read romance either. So
Okay. Well,
yeah.
maybe someday. Maybe someday you'll get to have those awkward conversations.
Oh, God, I hope not. They've been bugging me forever. They're like, tell me your name. Tell me.
No, I won't do it.
I know.
Okay, so I think that you are just the queen of third act breakups.
Oh,
They
thank you.
kill you. Even knowing it's an HEA, they're gonna get back together. They'll wreck you. So how do you do it? Like, how do you do it so well? How do you keep it fresh from book to book? Because it's not an uncommon part of your writing. So how do you make
Yeah.
sure to not get repetitive?
Yeah. I mean, most of the time, the conflicts come naturally as part of their characters or their relationship arc. So, but I do like plan these out ahead of time. Like I do the major beats, like I said. And when I do them, if I find that they are a little too similar to previous books, then I'll try to tweak them a little
Right.
bit in a way that is still true to their characters, but also not like so similar that it feels like an argument that like a previous couple has already had.
Sure.
So it's just a matter of like trying to finesse things. And I imagine this is something that's going to be harder as I write more books. But for now,
Yeah.
it's manageable.
Maybe you can just repeat them every like in intervals, like every third book you can just have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if I ever hit like 100 books, then I don't know. I can't guarantee that
You won't even remember
they'll.
what's in your other books
Yeah,
at that point.
I know. I'm like, honestly, who is this couple? I don't know.
So I really appreciate, and I know a lot of people mention this too, how well you're able to take secondary characters in one book and then make them the main characters in another book. So how do you do this without like you give us just enough to make us really excited, but not so much that it kind of, infringes on the story that you're already telling? How do you do that?
Yeah. I think it's kind of knowing. Okay, well, first is kind of knowing the types of characters that my readers like and my target audience likes. And being able to kind of showcase these qualities, like you said, it's a fine line to balance. Like just showing enough of them to be mysterious, but not enough that they take over the story. But
Mm,
dropping little hints, it can either be dropping little hints here and there of like something in their background or their current life that needs resolving, like something that I can quickly gloss over, because readers are smart. Like they'll pick up something even if it's very subtle.
yeah,
And if they ever have an interaction with their love interest in their story, then just making sure that those scenes, even if they are short, hold a sort of tension that will
yeah.
intrigue people. Um, so it's really just those things. It's like just making sure that there's a little bit of mystery and a little bit of tension, and go from there.
Well, everyone wants to know if Asher Donovan is getting his own book. And myself, as a soccer fan, also would like to know this question, to
Oh
answer
my
this
God,
question.
Asher Donovan. I get asked about him a lot.
I
Let's
mean,
see.
you brought it on yourself, to be fair.
I know it's true. It's my fault. Hot soccer player, TBD.
Okay.
I cannot say anything at this time, but
So everyone wants to know also, have we met, which I know you said you haven't fully planned out all 7 books, but have we met all of the main characters yet, or are some of them yet to come?
you haven't met all of them in the
Okay.
series. You've met a couple. You've
Okay.
met a couple of main characters in King of Wrath. So
Yay. I have a
either
couple
directly or
guesses.
indirectly. Yeah.
I love that. I'm excited. Um, so you included, friendship dynamics are also a very like big part of your storytelling. And Vivian has a best friend, Isabella, and she is an author. And I found her to be just so fun.
Yes.
And her writing style, they talk about how she can't have a lot of silence. She likes it to be a little bit chaotic. So is this something you pulled from your own experience or
Oh no. I cannot write the way that she does. Like I need to have a headspace. Like if there's too much going on, like I get overstimulated by too much going on
right?
around me. So even if I'm in a cafe, I need to have my headphones in and I need to have like my white noise on,
Yeah.
so I don't get distracted. But yeah, no, I cannot do that.
I'm so jealous of people that can function that way because I also have to have it very quiet to like do anything.
Yeah, like for things that require like a lot of thought and creative, like if I was just doing like answering emails, then probably I can be a little chaotic.
Sure.
But if I'm writing, then no.
Mm. No thanks. I'd be interested to
Yeah,
see what we would get from your writing in that kind of environment.
probably not anything good.
You'd be like, nah, we'll
No,
we'll
you
release
probably don't
that
want to
on the
see
blog.
that. Yeah, I don't think you want to see that.
So, are there any characters that you do relate to or closely relate to?
Yeah, I mean, I think out of all the characters that I've written so far, I probably relate to Stella from Twisted Lies the most, just in terms of kind of the insecurities that she has, the way that she handles situations, her outlook on the world. I think we're just similar in a lot of ways. So for her, like writing her book was um, it was pretty easy to get into her character because a lot of the ways that she would react to a situation is probably the way that I would react. So yeah, she is probably the most relatable one for me.
She's such a good character. I loved her. Um, I don't want to give anything away about this book, but you do travel in this book. The characters travel, and that's a theme that we see a lot. So,
Yes.
is travel important to you? Is that something you like to do a lot, or is it just like, I want
Yeah.
to do this, so I'm going to include it?
No, I'm a big traveler. I love traveling. I It's something that I've always enjoyed. Like I was one of this is so nerdy, but when I was like in middle school, I was like 13 and I was like subscribed. I begged my mom and she subscribed me to Travel and Leisure magazines.
Hey,
I was 13 years old and I was like reading Travel and Leisure magazine with like all of these luxury hotels that I absolutely could not afford at the time. But I don't know, there's just something about going to a different country and like meeting different people and experiencing different cultures, that's just very inspiring for me.
Hmm.
And I think it's creatively inspiring as well as just something I personally enjoy doing. So I try to put a lot of it in my books.
Yeah, I love to travel. It's, one of my favorite things. And there's a place they go in this book, and that was one of the most recent places I went. And so I'm
Oh.
reading this, and I'm like, well, I was like reading snippets to my husband, and he was like, I think I'll read this book. And I was like, feel free, but I'm just trying to read to you about this place. Um,
Amazing.
so travel is kind of along the same lines of this whole series. Will it be, I know it's based around the club, will it be the New York chapter only, or are we going to go around?
Right now, my plans are there's going to be a heavy New York focus.
Okay.
So I can't, I mean, maybe in the future there might be some other chapters that pop up, but for now, a lot of it is going to be set in New York with
I
with
can,
some like detours to other places along the way.
hey, that's fun. I think it'll be really fun. I mean, we've had, there's just so much to do in that city.
Yeah,
And that club sounds amazing. The way that you wrote it, it just like, I want to go there.
and me
Did you just
too.
like, did you get inspiration anywhere from that, or did you just
No,
fantasize about it?
I honestly just made it up. I just made it up.
Well, it's great.
Yeah,
And there's a ball there, and it's awesome, and I wanted to attend it, but
I
maybe someday.
know. One
You
day.
could do a Kings of Sin ball, and we'll all
I
just
know.
come.
We should just Kings of Sin ball reader event.
There you go. Yes, I will help. What was your favorite part about writing this book, and did you have a favorite scene?
Yeah, I mean, I always think my favorite part of the book is just being able to. I think there's always a magic moment because whenever I start a book, right, it's always kind of like, okay, I'm still feeling out the story, trying to get to know these characters, and then with every book, there always hits a magic moment where you're like, okay, I get it, like this is how it's supposed to go, and I think I really enjoy just seeing like Dante and Vivian's dynamic. And I especially loved like Vivian having her comebacks and her sass and the way that she is with him. It was really
Yeah.
fun. But I also really enjoy the parts, like I said earlier, the parts where Dante is like struggling with his feelings and he doesn't quite know what's happening, but he's like getting so jealous and like starting to care for her, but he doesn't want to care for her. And that's like one of my favorite types of dynamics to write is like that tension between someone who is starting to fall in love, but they don't want to and they don't know that
Yeah.
they are, which is just like really fun.
Yeah, I loved the scenes. They weren't like full scenes, but little snippets here and there where his like house staff would get really annoyed at him because he was
Yes.
being so dense about it.
Yes. Yes. Oh my
Just
gosh.
they made it so fun.
Yeah, I
Um,
love them.
do you fan cast while you write? And if so, have you fan casted these characters?
I generally don't. I'm a very bad caster. I'm a very bad fan caster. Okay, so generally speaking, it's very hard for me to find people that match what the characters look like in my mind. For this book, I actually do have a Pinterest board. So I had put David Gandy
Okay.
as Dante in a suit, and then for Vivian, I think I put like it's like a Chinese actress called Nini, I think.
Okay.
So I just found them on Pinterest, and I was like, this looks accurate. So I just put them on a board. But yeah, so those are the two that I actually put for this book. But in generally, like this is not a normal occurrence for me.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to find people that you know.
I know when I read, it's sometimes like I can visualize, but I can never visualize like an actual person. It's not until after I've like finished that I'm like, oh, I could see this person looking like this character. But I love seeing all the like aesthetic reels and posts that people do of
Yeah.
your books, and I'm just like,
Uh,
yes, I can see this. I can see it.
oh yeah, I love those. They're amazing. They're so talented because I could never.
Well, you've got your own talents. Um, So, one of the things that someone asked is what makes you the most excited about this series? And which I think you've already answered this, but is there a specific setting for King of Pride that we don't know about?
Yeah, I mean, I just love that it's kind of a longer series. There's a lot more room for me to play around with dynamics, with tropes and things that I haven't done before without, leaving the world that I created. King of Pride, I don't want to say anything because I'm still in the phase where everything is kind of up in the air.
Right.
So nothing is concrete yet. So I don't want to say anything, and then it like ends up being cut from the final book. So. I mean, it'll be set in New York for sure, and then we'll see about the
Okay.
other
We'll
destinations.
see about it.
Yeah.
um, I had a couple people ask questions about characters, future characters.
hmm
So one of the questions, will you ever write a female billionaire as the main character instead of a male billionaire?
It's definitely a possibility. I cannot say anything yet. I love a good power couple.
Hmm.
Is all I'm gonna say. So
Okay.
yeah.
And then another person asked about ethnicities that you feature in your writing, and they said they specifically would really like to see a South Asian Indian female. So, how do you decide that kind of stuff?
They kind of just come organically. So it's kind of like one of those things where I want my characters to reflect the world around us, but I also don't want them to feel like a checkbox of
Right.
of ethnicities that I should write about. Um, that being said, stay tuned. um, so yeah, it's honestly it's kind of just what comes up in the story, and also like cultures like that I feel like I can write about in a way that even though I'm not part of the culture, that I can at least do it like respectfully and in the right way,
Right.
um, and things like that. So yeah,
Well, you have a lot of books, so a lot of opportunity for
yeah,
whatever you want to write and whoever we can see. I know people are really excited. Um, I'm trying to make sure I get through some of these reader questions. Questions like this, I think, are a little bit hard, but do you have a favorite couple that you've written about?
I know it's really hard. I can't choose a favorite because it's like I love them all for different reasons, right?
Yeah.
So like the first couple in a series is always special to me, whether that's Alex and Ava from Twisted or Blake and Sarah from If Love or Dante and Vivian from Kings of Sin, right? There's always something about a first couple that is special just because they're the ones that kick off the world.
Yeah.
And they're also the ones that you grow with the most because they show up in the other books. And so
Hmm.
you see more of them than you do some of the later couples. I, I can't. It's I can't choose.
Yeah, it's not a fair question.
Yeah, can't choose between my babies.
So I did get a lot of like writing questions as well. The
Yeah.
biggest one being, what advice or tips do you have for people that are aspiring to publish or work with a publisher or self-publish? What can you provide them in terms of advice?
Yeah. So, several facets of this question, which is craft and then the business side and marketing side. So, I mean, I always say this to first-time writers is that you have to just write the book and put it out. Like, don't try to make the book like the greatest, which is not to say it shouldn't be the best book that you can put out, but with our first books, I think there's always a certain preciousness that we give it because it's like, this is my first book and it has to be perfect and it has to be like the most
Right.
amazing book that I've ever written in my life. And the thing is, like, we all grow as writers. Like, our first book will, generally speaking, is probably not going to be our best book ever. But as we publish more books and we get more practice, they get better and better. And like writing is a continual learning process. So one is just get the book done, get it out there. I'll make sure that you like from a craft perspective, like know your reader expectations for the genre that you're writing in, know story structure, right? So there's, you know, like whether it's the three act story structure or if you look online, there's like romance structures that generally you'll find that will
Right.
help you kind of map out those big emotional beats if you're not familiar with them. And then from the business side is if you have like invest in a good cover and invest in a professional editor is very like those two things are very important. And yeah, just make sure that you don't skimp on either of those things. I mean, there's a lot more that I could say, but
Yeah.
I don't want to take up the whole live stream with it.
No, that's really well, that makes me wonder. So your cover,
Mm-hmm.
um, we've got a lot of questions. I'm looking in the questions box that we have here, and a lot of people are actually asking about the design and how you went with this design, why you decided to go with like the object cover throughout this whole series, and then also what's the process like for designing your covers and spines, and will they all match, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so fun fact, I actually had a first design for these covers. So I got all seven of these covers originally done last fall before I
Oh
even
wow.
released Twisted Hate. I got them. I had the idea for this story like last summer, and I already because I'm the type of person that likes to get covers done before I write a story because it gives me like motivation, and I like to look at it. I
Yeah.
like to look at it. But then literally like over the summer, I was looking at the covers. They were originally dark. They're dark covers. And I was looking at it and I was talking to my publicists and like my team about it. And we're like, this looks too much like dark romance. It looks
Okay.
like dark mafia romance. And so, I mean, that's one of the things is that like you have to make sure that your cover conveys the correct tone and the correct genre is very important. And so I ended up redoing all of the covers and bless my cover designer. She's amazing and she was very patient with me. It took us a very long time to come up with this concept because it
Okay.
is a billionaire romance. And in billionaire romance, the standard is a guy in a suit, which is yes, a guy in a suit is the kind of standard for billionaire romance. But like you said, I wanted an object cover just because looking at my audience, and what my readers prefer, I think a lot of them prefer object covers over people cover. And it also helps me because like 7 books with like a guy in a suit is not as like differentiated. It's cheaper for me because then I don't
Sure.
have to pay for the exclusive images of these guys. But yeah, so we were deciding, and then we finally decided to go with a light cover, and we kind of packed some of the symbolism in it. Like I wanted a symbol like the ring that kind of either symbolizes
Hmm.
the story, but also the sin. The animal, the dragon, is actually so every sin comes with a corresponding animal.
Yep.
So the dragon is the symbol for wrath, as you can see on the side. And then in the background, you can see some elements like there's a wedding veil for the arranged marriage aspect and, little details like that. And so we went through a ton of iterations. But yeah, basically, I reach out to the cover designer. I tell them, like, this is the genre, this is my general idea. And then I give them, like, examples of covers that I like or fonts
Okay.
that I like. They'll come up with mock ups, they send it to me and then I'll give them feedback and we keep on going with that revision until there's like a final product that we're happy with.
So have you already designed all the others again?
And not all of them.
Okay.
We have, yeah, we're working on the others to finalize. So
Um, so everyone, well, not everyone, but a couple of people are asking if the spines will like be the same, or will there be different covers for each spine? I don't know how
they'll
much
be
you can speak to
different.
that.
So the spines are the similar, but they'll all be different colors.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So red is the color of wrath, and then there'll be different colors for the other books.
They're gonna look so good on shelves.
I know. I'm excited. I love the jewel tones.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do too. I'm just peeking in these to see if there's any others that I can ask before we sign off. Um, Yeah, it looks like there's a couple questions about signings. So I don't know if you want to give any of that information while we're here,
Yeah.
where people can get signed books.
Um, okay, so I am doing a couple of signings in November. So if you go to, I'll post about it on Instagram later as well. But there's one in New York, I think on November. I have to look at my calendar. I'm really bad with dates. There is one in November. It's a joint signing with Elle Kennedy at the Barnes and Noble in Tribeca.
Oh, so fun.
That is on, I think, November 2nd at 6:30 p.m. So that is a wristband event. So you have to buy a book of either my or Elle's from that location the day of the signing in order to get a wristband to enter the event. And then after that, I'll be in San Diego at the Meet Cute Bookshop. Unfortunately, that event is sold out.
Oh,
But I will also be in Los Angeles in mid-November. Sorry, I'm like looking at, I don't want to give the wrong dates. I mean, I'll put it up, but I think on the 14th and 15th, I'll be in Los Angeles. So on the 14th, I'll be at the Ripped Bodice. On the 15th, I'll be at the Barnes and Noble in Manhattan Beach for signings and chats there. And if you're not able to make it to the signings, but you want a signed book, the Ripped Bodice has something open on their website where you can order signed and personalized books from me. And then next year, I'll be at Rare Melbourne in Australia and Book Bonanza in Texas for the big book signings.
that's so fun. I know I saw the ripped bodice one and I was so tempted, but I have all mine and they're all annotated and have all my notes. And I just was like, ugh, I wish, but I'm not gonna buy another
Oh,
set. Maybe,
maybe
maybe I
we'll
will.
meet
I
in
might.
person one day and then I can sign your annotated.
We can, yes, we can plan it around the ball that we host
Yes,
together for
the
the
Kings of Sin
series.
ball.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so before we go, we'll do a quick rapid fire if you want to.
of course.
Um, so, question one, what are you currently reading?
I am reading I'm still reading The Silent Patient by I think it's Alex Michelson. It's a thriller, but
Ooh.
yeah. Anyway.
Isabella is a thriller romance writer. Do you like to read a lot of thriller?
I've gotten more into it. I used to be strictly romance, and then I kind of I needed something because I think I was reading too much romance, and I was getting like a little burnt out on it. So I needed a switch in genre, and so I
Hmm.
switched to thrillers, and they've been fun because they're like completely different, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I
they,
feel like it's perfect for this time of the year too.
yes, it is. Even though I'm a big scaredy cat and I can't watch scary movies, but I'll read a thriller.
I don't watch a lot of scary movies, but I love Scream, which it's, ironic
Oh
because that's
yeah.
the question. What's your favorite scary movie? But in general, I watched The Sixth Sense the other night for the first time in like
Oh yeah. Oh my
over a
God, I
decade.
remember.
And
Yeah.
I was just like, this isn't as scary as I remember, but it's still a little freaky.
It's a little freaky. I remember I was so shocked by the plot because I watched it when I was really young, and I was
Me
like, "Oh
too.
my
Yeah.
God."
Yeah. I was a little kid when it came out, and yeah, it was shocking. Quite a twist.
Yeah.
Okay. So, hardest book to write so far?
Oh, I think probably Twisted Lies was pretty tough for me to write. It was the longest book. It was the last book in the series. Um, there was just a lot that had to go into it, so for
Did
many
you
reasons.
intend for it to be as long as it was, or did it just kind of end up like that?
It just ended up like ideally because I kept on talking. I was like, you guys, I was like, this book is so long, but no, it just ended up being that way because it's like one of those things where okay, I have to have the romance, and then because it's the last book in the series, so I want to wrap up some of the group dynamics as well, and then there's
Right.
like a lot of open threads from the other books that I needed to close, and also the nature of their relationship was a slower burn, so all of those things put together gave me a
Well,
very
I
thick
loved
book.
it. And everyone I talked to loves it a lot. So
Oh, I'm glad.
we're grateful that you took the time to do it. Favorite rom-com film?
Ooh, oh man, favorite rom-com film. Why am I completely blanking? I love, wow. I love rom-coms. I don't know why I'm suddenly blanking. I remember, okay, with The Ugly Truth, but
Okay.
only because I was obsessed with Eric Winter, who, who played the doctor.
Fair.
And I
It's
just
fair.
watched it for him. I'm not a huge Gerald Butler fan, but I loved
Mm.
Eric Winter. And I was like, I'm just going to watch the first like half hour of this movie over and over again just for you. Um, and I don't know, this is not a rom com, but I love The Devil Wears Prada. I
I
don't know if it counts as a rom com, but
I actually have never seen that movie, and people really get upset about that.
oh my God, you need to watch it. I
I
loved it.
know.
This was back in my era when I was like, I'm going to be a magazine editor. That didn't happen, but
When it first came out, I was really like, I just did not like Anne Hathaway. I don't know why. I just did not like her. And so I never got
oh,
around to reading it. But I'm watching it. I do really like her now. So
yeah.
I should be kind and go watch it.
You should watch it. It's fun.
Who was your first celebrity crush?
Oh my God. I think it was, I'm sure I had others before him. I don't remember. But I remember when I was in middle school, I was obsessed with Chad Michael Murray. Tristan from Gilmore Girls. I'm sad that he was off the show, but he was in One Tree Hill, and I watched that show specifically for him. I was obsessed with him. Yeah, he's the
Yeah.
first one that I remember.
Um, that's also a show I've never watched.
Oh my God.
Which I live in
How
North
could you?
Carolina. I live in North Carolina and it was filmed here. And so it's like a big deal. People are obsessed with it. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I don't know. I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh my gosh. No,
Okay,
it was,
last one.
no, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. I had nothing. It was just like a random thing.
Last question for this. Recommend 3 books other than your own.
Okay. Okay, if you know me, you know that one of my favorite series is Alona Andrews' Hidden Legacy series. It's an urban fantasy series with kind of like a romantic subplot. I love the Mindfuck series by Saint Abby, which is like a dark romance, like kind of dark serial killer romance. And then I like Pam Godwin's Sea of Ruin, which is dark, kind of it's like historical. It's like a pirate romance, which is
Ooh,
not like a pirate romance is not something that I normally gravitate toward.
sure.
But I really enjoyed that one. I would look up trigger warnings for all of, especially the Mindfuck series and Sea of Ruin because they're dark. I would look up trigger warnings for those. But yeah, those are 3 that I enjoy.
Well, I've just added some to my TBR. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Well, you were a trooper. We had so many questions. People were submitting them as we went, and I think I covered almost all of them. So thank you so much, everybody.
Of course.
Pre-order King of Wrath. It comes out Thursday, and it's so good. I loved it. 5 stars. You can read my review on Goodreads. Anna, thank you so much for your
Thank
time,
you.
and I hope that you have a great evening.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to everyone for joining.
Thanks, everyone. Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.